Alrighty boysies, how's it going? How's it going this fine day? So, recently at Man Home Video over on Twitch, we have beaten all of the Clock Tower games, and I thought I'd give a wee I'd give my opinion on a few of them, because it's a game series that has really high highs and extraordinarily low lows. But, let's give our wee opinions on Humans, very innovative horror series. So, we have right at the top, we have S for Scissor, because I couldn't think of any pun names. Ending A, because all the endings are like A, B, C. That's A ranking. Pretty good, you can tell I just gave up with the pun names there. It's fine because couldn't think of anything else. And I'd actually take a pair of scissors to the gut instead of replaying these, because again, that's the feeling that a lot of the Clock Tower, well, not a lot, some of the Clock Tower games give me. But let's start off with Clock Tower: The First Fear, or Clock Tower Rewind as it's known, because it got re-released recently. This is a phenomenal game that is way ahead of its time. It was released on the Super Nintendo at first. I believe was it the Wonder Swan there was a port to? And there's a version on Windows, then there's the new one which was enhanced port, and then there's a PS1 version which is what I played on stream. And this game it's way ahead of its time, considering this game came out in 1995. I don't want to say it was the first game to do stalker horror, but it was definitely one of the first games to do it correctly or do it right, I think this is, if you're doing that style of game, this is the game to study, It's really stylish, mainly because it steals a lot of stuff from like Giallo movies and mainly Argento movies such as Tenebrae and Phenomena. I forgot his name there. Mainly because the main character is just Jennifer Connelly from that. But Clock Tower: The First Fear, I believe, is a classic that is way ahead of its time, really innovative, really stylish, given that when most horror games were looking at like things like Dawn of the Dead, this was looking at Giallo movies. So the style really, like, even though it's a game on Super Nintendo, the style kind of carries over, because I think style always, age better than realistic graphics and stuff like that. Then we have a sequel, which isn't confusing at all because it's known as Clock Tower, but over here we didn't get The First Fear, we only got the PS1 version of Clock Tower, which is a direct sequel, so you gotta be confused when you go in and they're straight away they're going, oh, do you remember the Scissor Man murders? But anyway, direct sequel, not quite as good as the original, but still a very good game. Has some questionable writing, like why was Nolan a nonce? Why was that a thing? Because Jennifer's like 16, I want to say, and Nolan's like, oh, we should go on a date sometime. Like, Nolan, you're in your 30s, get the fuck. But, Clock Tower 2 is still really fun. I played through both of the scenarios on my stream and had a really fun time with them. It's not a perfect game by any means, but it's definitely better than some other ones, and I'd probably put it in ending A. I'd definitely recommend it if you were playing through Clock Tower First Fear. You might as well play Clock Tower in the PS1 as well. Its ending drops off really badly, but a lot of horror games do that, where the start is really strong and then the ending isn't quite as strong. It definitely has a bit of a tonal shift, maybe towards more comedy horror than stylish Giallo horror, but and I don't think the Giallo style is kind of there as much, but I do think the PS1 graphics age a lot worse than the really stylish 2D pixel art, But I sound really negative in the game. I'm not. It's got some really effective moments. The first meeting with Scissorman when you're in I believe it's college campus, is really effective, and it continues to have really effective moments. So Clock Tower 2 is in the A category. Oh boy, here's the next one. So, over in America, this was released as Clock Tower 2: The Struggle Within, or in Japan, Clock Tower 2: Ghost Head. Now, Ghost Head is a complete spin-off. It doesn't have any of the original producers, directors, not many of the original staff. In fact, it was just Human going, yeah, might as well make a spin-off. This game's horrendous, boys. Not only is this game badly put together, there's scenes where, I know obviously Clock Tower does chase things, but I was never soft-locked by the game itself. Ghost Head done that to me in multiple parts. The zombies were a pain in the dick, so there was bits where you run into zombies and scripted events. And most other Clock Tower games, there was maybe one stalker chasing you, and Scissorman is just around. He's around just enough that he's scary, but he never becomes really annoying. Those zombies made me want to rip my pubes out in anger. The story is nonsensical. The story makes absolutely no sense. It has a gimmick where you can switch personalities, but it's done in a really rough way, and I got through it using a walkthrough, because fuck that, I would not play through the game without a walkthrough. It is so trial and error. In fact, there's a puzzle. It's not even a puzzle. There's an enemy, if you don't trigger him in the first chapter, But the thing is, I'll paint a picture for you. It's a suit of armor. You look at the suit of armor once, and then you find it a bit cursed, and you look at the suit of armor again, and the suit of armor chases you about. Now, if you don't look at a suit of armor a second time, that doesn't trigger to chase you about. But then if you go through and you play a couple of hours and you get to the final section, the suit of armor can fall through the roof and crush you to death. That's just the kind of shit you get in Ghost Head. And the story, everything in this game is a failure. I'm going to put Ghost Head down the bottom. I would generally, there are a few games that I've streamed on Twitch that I would like to replay less than that. But then, we have a really, 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 really interesting one with Clock Tower 3. Clock Tower 3 is completely unrelated story-wise to the rest of the games, actually so is Clock Tower 2 for that fact. But Clock Tower 3, that is very strange. That's the only way I can describe it. It still does the stalker horror, but it's almost a kind of episodic thing. I don't want to say like Hellbleed, but how like every section is a different killer in a different time zone. I really love that gimmick. I love that idea. It really freshens up the whole game. It's an odd. The only thing I can say is really odd. I can't remember the director, but there's a director who done the cutscenes, but he mocapped them, and they're very animated. They move like it's a panto, like very over the top. So the game's tone is very strange. The boss fights are really like. So basically, what happens is you have to gather things, but like an adventure game. And then the game switches right at the end when you get this killer and you need to seal these killers away, and it becomes like fucking Sailor Moon. It is a wild time. Clock Tower 3 is, I'd probably rank it in pretty. Oh no, do I put it in A or do I put it in pretty good? I'd probably put it in pretty good. No, fuck it. It's that strange and unique. I think I need to put it in ending A. It's because I remember saying this to Jason. We're talking about Hellbleed for that matter. I was like, honestly, there's nothing else quite like that game, and if that's a very specific thing you're looking for, it's perfect for you. I don't think Hellbleed's the best thing in the world, but there's nothing else quite like it, and I can say quite truthfully, there's not much else like Clock Tower 3. Like I said, I love the gimmicks of the different killers, and it really keeps it fresh and wild, and it's so over the top that I'd recommend people play it. It's not quite as good as the rest of the Clock Tower games, so I'll probably keep it on the, like my ranking is if it's closer here, it's above. I'd probably keep it at the bottom of A. I might move it down actually. I'll move it down just for like more sake. Right, now, so that's the original Clock Tower series finished. I say Clock Tower series, the original Clock Tower series is only really Clock Tower 1 and Clock Tower 2. But there were two games I believe were connected. So, first up, there was Haunting Ground. Haunting Ground, I don't believe has many of the original staff, but I could be wrong in that. I probably should have read that up before I made this video. But it definitely feels a bit more of a spiritual successor to Clock Tower. Definitely more than like, Clock Tower 3 or Clock Tower Ghost Head was. Then we have Nightcry, which I believe was made by the director of the original Clock Tower and crowdfunded. But we'll get to Nightcry. But first up we have Haunting Ground. Now Haunting Ground is a phenomenal game. It is one of my crown jewels of my collection. I actually have a physical copy sitting right behind me. But it really takes that stalker horror thing that started in like Clock Tower 1 and Clock Tower 2 and ramps it up tenfold. I've never played a game where you feel so powerless compared to the guys that are stalking you or the creatures that are stalking you. But the thing that's great as well is you don't feel alone because you've got a dog helping you, Huey, and Huey is one of the best characters I've ever met in a video game. Fucking class. I love the arc, like you're in this ancient castle. The story is really weird, and it came out at a time there was multiple horror games like Silent Hill 3 and stuff like that were all about, young teenagers, like, and the invasion of their bodies and their, agency taken away from them, because obviously there's themes of like pregnancy and birth and all that in these games, and it is horrifying. Again, not many games have made me feel grotty, but not in like a revolting way, not in like a this is feeling a bit fucking grim way. I mean, obviously it's grim, but you know what I mean. It made me feel genuinely frightened, the game, which is rare because I'm not very frightened by many things, but I love all the different stalkers. Again, they're not like Clock Tower 3, they are all connected, but they're all different in very different ways. They act in different ways, and you have to escape in very different ways. I adore Clock Tower 3. Excuse me, sorry. I adore Haunting Ground. I'm begging Capcom for another one constantly. They keep putting costumes in Street Fighter and keep going, oh look, remember Haunting Ground? I was like, yes, please give me a HD version. And also, can I just point out, see for the PS2, it looks phenomenal. It came out around that time where they were really pushing the PS2 as to what it could do. And that was around the time of like Shadow of the Colossus and fucking oh my god, I forgot everything else, you know, but all these very cinematic games like Metal Gear Solid 3 as well that are really pushing the system. So, I'm gonna say, I think Haunting Ground is not only the best of this series, I believe Haunting Ground is one of the best horror games ever made, and also it was in my other video of my top 25 games. I cannot stop talking about Haunting Ground, I fucking adore it. Whew, right boys, but here we go, We're now digging into the actual successor to the Clock Tower name. We're digging into Nightcry. Now, Nightcry, again, I mentioned, was crowdfunded, and I remember reading about it years ago in Game Master magazine when it was called Project Scissors, and I was like, oh, this will be cool, and I just didn't hear about it for years, and then I believe, I might be wrong in this, but the company that makes it, Nudemaker, have made hentai games, and it has the production values of a hentai game. In fact, one of the characters you run to right at the start is Dante from Devil May Cry. But not cool Dante, I'm talking DMC Devil May Cry, but that's because Capcom sold off the assets to try and make some money back. But anyway, this game is a bit of a state. It's messy. The writing is all over the place. The story is nonsensical and actually quite offensive in some bits when there's one character at the end who is. I will say they try something big with this. A character who is actively suicidal. And I was like, you can do something interesting with that in horror. You can do something interesting because that's quite a dark subject matter, quite a taboo subject matter. And I'm not going to begrudge a game for trying something different. But it is handled with the care of a... Like, they fuck it so badly. Oh my god. But it's got really it's also got very questionable production values. It has, but I'm saying that it wasn't boring. I didn't want to rip my eyelids off in anger, so I'm gonna put Nightcry. Oh, but that's the thing. Would I think I would actively, like, I can't even say these are close in the list because if I had to put a gun to my head and said you have to replay Nightcry to, like, I don't know, save your family, I'd be like, sure, I'm not gonna enjoy it, but it's there. Oh, nah. Actually, I tell you what. Actually. Add a row below. Poop. But. Not. That. Poop. And I can't. I don't have a. Pretend this V is a downwards arrow. It's poop. It's not very good. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but it's not as bad as Ghost Head. Ghost Head is a fucking dog shit terrible game. So boys, there we go. Final ranking. We are going with at the very bottom. I'd rather take a pair of scissors to the gut instead of playing this game again, and that is Ghost Head or Clock Tower 2: Struggle Within. Poop, but not that poop. Nightcry. Pretty good. Clock Tower 3. Ending A. Clock Tower 2. S, the best ones, second one being Clock Tower: The First Sphere, and the best game in the whole series, it's not really in this series, but it's kind of counted as it sometimes, is Haunting Ground. Fucking adore that game, but I thank you for joining us, boysies, and take care of yourselves, up the Jimmy Scissors, and catchies. See yous!